all the previous sessions, and thank you for joining today also. So with me today again, Mr. Rahul Pise, Mr. Ashish Jacob, Mr. Nishan Kashyap, and Mr. Sanko Subrodev. They will be our co-host, and my name is Ankit Sahu. I am the co-founder and director of Objectify Technologies. So earlier, what we have done, uh, the previous sessions, what we have done are like the three sessions we have done. First one was on additive manufacturing, 3D printing 101. So where we explain about the technology, what kind of decision making you should do on the technology itself, and how you can implement the several technologies coming under the umbrella of additive manufacturing itself, and how you can utilize it for your benefit and your organization's benefit. And after that, Mr. Rahul Piche presented on tools and the rules of additive manufacturing. So there we explained what are the required prerequisite, uh, and the tools like the software, the machine, the material, what are the recipe required for making a good component through additive manufacturing itself. And he also explained on the rules of additive manufacturing. So what are the current rules of making any design through additive manufacturing and producing it for your own application, and uh, how it is important to follow certain guidelines of additive manufacturing to minimize the number of defects and failures in the technology itself. So after that, Mr. Ashish Jacob presented to you in our previous session on the application side of additive manufacturing. So he explained the different sectors who have implemented additive manufacturing on their product itself, and be it in automotive, aerospace, space, white goods, um, as a prototyping technology. So every industry, every sector has its unique problem statement, and Mr. Ashish Jacob had tried to explain the similar problem statements from different sectors and organizations on additive manufacturing itself. So today, we are going to present to you on the learnings and the misconceptions of additive manufacturing. So why we wanted to do something on the misconception front is like there are a lot of media coverage of additive manufacturing in past 10 years, but the technology has been there for almost like 35 years, and people have been utilizing this technology for their product development and and their small batch production anyway. But there have been, because of the internet or because of the people getting too enthusiastically excited about the technology, they have been some misconception about the technology itself. There have been so much to learn and then unlearn and learn again about the technology, because it is a rapid technology and it is at a growth rate. At that stage, the technology is also ever evolving, and we see a different kind of an approach within the technology itself. So we will start with a small poll. So a poll will be flashing onto your screen, Sankha.
Yes, so the poll is now live. I would request everyone to give your answers. So you can keep them coming, and finally we'll be giving the outcome. So please respond, give your opinion. So yes, 50%. Yes, I would request everyone to please vote so that you can gauge your proficiency.
So yes, in the meantime, when you're polling for the question, the poll itself, so we can go ahead and try to understand on the misconceptions of the additive manufacturing technology. Rahul, can you go onto the next slide, please? So there are certain myths around the additive manufacturing itself. So here we wanted to discuss on the same lines. So the most common myth is like additive manufacturing is a very costly affair, and it is not affordable for everyone and anyone. So we will be talking about that. We will be talking about that there are not enough options of 3D printing. Then we will be talking about uh, that the problem is like people think, and it has been quoted in media that additive manufacturing can manufacture anything. So that we will talk about. We will also talk about the comparison between conventionally produced component to the additively manufactured component, and then we'll be talking about the complexity section. So how additive manufacturing answers the complexity related question of the design itself. And we will be talking about the zero lead time, what people have a misunderstanding that additive manufacturing uh, can be done in zero time itself. Then we will be discussing on the skill factor, and also we will be talking about the serial production of additive manufacturing as a technology for your requirement of your product itself. So Rahul, can you go? So as I was mentioning in the previous slide, that additive manufacturing is costly, what people think about. So in my first presentation itself, I had shown you the similar graph of additive manufacturing having a unique value proposition. So the cost is nothing until unless you create a wealth around it. So the wealth around additive manufacturing is having a low volume and having unique designs, and those designs should be a bit impossible for other technologies, and your demand should be elastic enough to sustain. So these are the criteria how you can judge if the technology itself is costly for you or it is beneficial for you. So there have been certain cases with our own operations that there have been customers who have been coming back to us because of their design for their small batch, or because of their elastic requirement. So it won't make any sense to for them to go into other technology like die casting, injection molding, or any other production related technology itself. So their additive manufacturing becomes a very good value proposition for quick turnaround, for small batches, for uh, for lean volumes kind of a activity. So that's how it becomes a good proposition for your application itself. Rahul? So people have been discussing on 3D printing that it doesn't have enough options. So we are just talking about SLS technologies, which is selective laser sintering. So you can see there are n number of machine providers in the technology front itself. So you have 3D System and EOS being the pioneer of the technology ever since of its inception. And then after that comes like few of the new names which have been in talks for for providing selective laser sintering equipments for your applications. So it doesn't only matter like if you have only one kind of an option, you can have multiple options of machine manufacturer and multiple material options also similarly. Rahul? Hello, Rahul?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Hello.
Different sort of materials, but not all sort of materials. So this is one example. In case of glass, uh, yes, glass can be 3D printed, but the accuracy and precision is, and as well as the scale is not as just like a glass vials or bottles that you can produce. So setting a realistic expectation and what technology can offer, what are the limitations, that is something we want to demystify. So in metals, polymers, there are a lot of variety that you can print, but when it comes to glass, you can understand, we can mimic the glass using polycarbonate or any sort of acrylates or epoxy, which is clear. So we can mimic glass using 3D printers. But if you want to print glass, yes, it can be printed. However, there are limitations. So the extruder that you can use for glass printing has to be at least 10 in thickness. So you cannot print very intricate shapes and tiny feature details. The reason behind it is glass rheology. So the material properties comes into picture in these scenarios. So glass melts around 1800 degrees centigrade. So that in itself is quite a challenge. So what sort of a nozzle design has to go along with that? What is the flowability at a specific temperature? So all these things are needed to be considered. So yes, manufacturing liberty is offered by additive manufacturing, but there are certain nuances to it as well. So not all sort of shapes and sizes and everyday use item you can just push it for additive manufacturing. But you can see the brilliant artwork type of examples, and it can open up a possibility in some other segments as well. So yeah, Ankit, next one
Yes,
you can take.
yes, yes. So what people generally were asking in the previous two sessions also, that additive manufacturing, the properties of additive manufactured components can be with lower properties as compared to the conventional components. But there have been certain applications where people have realized like additive manufacturing is an answer for their component, and now people have started designing for additive manufacturing. So it has changed the complete structure of designing a component for manufacturing itself. So here is an example of GE Leap fuel nozzle. So earlier this nozzle was made in 160 odd sub assemblies. So different components used to combine together to make something like this. Now something like this can be produced in one single quantity, and all the sub assemblies have been integrated in itself, and it has been produced in such confidence that it is right now on a GE9X engine. And this GE9X engine is right now currently on the Boeing 777X. So it is a new aircraft from Boeing. So if properties was the question, like additive manufacturing answers that question really well. So what we generally talk to our customer as, that the properties of additive manufactured component will be somewhere between uh, investment casting to forging technology. So it will be lower than the forging technology, but it will be higher than investment casting. So any kind of casting related product, you can directly think of converting into additively manufactured with a robust design, with design for AM in place. So something like this, the fabric of NASA, what they have prepared is something which you cannot manufacture through any other technology, and it offers them a unique proposition of saving a lot of weight and removing a lot of sub assembly requirement for producing something like this conventionally. So it is a give and take on this aspect. So you can take additive manufacturer as a answer for your replacement of conventional technology. Rahul?
Yeah. So next one is about complexity. People assume that complexity is for free, but yes, certain level of complexity that technology offers uniquely, solving it, resolving it, making it simple. But there are intellectual type of innovation and complexity tackling in the programming side and the pre-process planning side. So that level of complexity is handled through virtual CAD design and all. So it comes at free when you are producing it, but it is tackled earlier. So okay.
Yes.
So
uh,
next, you
yes.
can add certain comment on it, and then I will move.
So the most important part of additive manufacture or any other technology is how well you do your project planning itself. So whenever you take a component to be manufactured, what you have to take care is how how you want it at the very end. So that kind of a planning is very much required in additive manufacturing. So complexity becomes a challenge for post processing. So you have to orient the component, you have to design the component for utilizing all the activity which are related to finish the component in its desired form itself. So Rahul.
Yeah. So next one is about lead time. Ankit, share
So
experience.
what people say about the technology itself is like the lead time will be very low. So people say it tends towards zero. Yes, everything tends towards zero, but it is not magic. So you have to do a lot of project planning. You have to invest time with the machine itself. You have to invest time in the design itself. So that amount of time is also the lead time incurred in the process. Yes, it is faster than any other technology, but it also depends on your production rate. So if compared with injection molding, in injection molding the time to produce the tool is higher uh, in compared to a additively manufactured component. But in injection mold, after the tool is made, the subsequent number of shots are easier and faster to produce than additive manufacturing. But you can have those initial batch, and you can answer your elastic requirements, elastic demand of your component itself. So that's where like the technology becomes a very good on the lead time. So it will not be zero, but it will be very less as compared to the conventional technology itself.
I will add one comment. So people paint a picture that, oh, the printing is instantaneous and you just have to upload certain design data, and at a click of a button you get a necessary outcome. And that's a wrong conception. And also on top of that, the lead time experience in comparison with additive manufacturing and conventional that Ankit was speaking about. So imagine you made a mold for making zebras. So that is a fixed automation. As a toy for kids, you made a zebras tool design, and you can only get zebras out of it. But it can be at faster rate. You can get thousands of quantity, but you cannot get any other toy. But the beauty of this technology is a flexibility offered. So with the same setup and with the same machine, only tweaking the designs, that flexibility it offers to make zebras, along with that giraffe, hippopotamus, lions, whatever you want. So that's the beauty of it. So it can handle that sort of complexities, and there is a lead time. So when you want a zebra, you design that that's a pre-activity, right? And similarly, any sort of other design you want to do, that's the lead time you have to account in order to print that specific item. There is certain level of detail and process planning that goes along, and I explained that in our webinar too. Okay.
Yes. So skill set requirement and the learning curve is quite steep in additive manufacturing. If and it has been a misconception with everyone that it is a very easy to use technology. Yes, it is easy when your designs are good and your machine codes are running very well. But to have certain complex related programs, where in a case like Objectify, where we tackle almost like 30 odd cost customers daily, and these 30 odd customers have, let's say, 5 different designs, so it comes out to be 150 odd parts to be produced in a single day. So that kind of project planning is very much required. That kind of data preparation is very much required. And that kind of scheduling and forecasting of our capacity is very well required. So that's where like the skill of your manufacturing understanding comes in, and that's how additive manufacturing is a technology where you have to have a very good amount of learning on manufacturing process and the design aspect itself. Rahul?
Yeah. So that previous slide was about fixed versus flexible automation again. So whenever something fixed automation is going on, you can design it once and it can be producing the same article, but there is no innovation. Innovation is stagnant. But this technology offers you continuously evolving designs, continuously challenging and pushing the envelope. So yeah, next topic, Ankit, take it.
So so yes, people are using additive manufacturing, as I've already told you, for serial production. On your right hand side, you can see this is a sole, insole of a Adidas shoe. So currently, Adidas has come out with this concept with Carbon 3D of producing the insoles with this kind of structures, which are great absorbers, and these are unique to your sole itself. So it depends on your business model, what kind of a business model you have. If you have a elastic level requirement of your design, then additive manufacturing becomes a very good answer, because you don't have to invest in the tooling, and you don't have to waste your time in producing that amount of pipeline for a product. You can do one at a time, or you can do 100 at the different pace itself. So, and also you can do reverse engineering. So if required, if you, let's say, have a very old turbine at your service, and you want to do reverse engineering of the component, which is frequently uh, maintenance component itself. So, so what you can do is you can take the help of reverse engineering plus additive manufacturing to make replacement components for your requirement itself. And that's how people have been using the technology better for their digitization agenda, and they have been able to serve their organizations better with this.
I can
Rahul?
share one of the
Yes.
example in shoes industry as well. So Nike recently sponsored one marathoner. His name is Eliud Kipchoge from Kenya, and he won the marathon, recording within 2 hours. So can you imagine how fast and how insane speed he has run? Maybe our some of the athletes over here at junior school level or somewhere around that, they cannot run sprint at as fast as he ran in a marathon. So that was facilitated with that shoe as well to break the 2 hour barrier. So it is very well known technical barrier that they had written papers in sports journals as well, that human being can never achieve running under 2 hours a marathon. So 42 kilometers in a 2 hour is simply fantastic. So that is achieved again with the unique design that they made, which improved the running efficiency by 4%. And if you are running for 42 kilometer, 4% amounts to breaking the barrier. So that's the beauty of technology. So they used certain titanium spring type of a feature inside a 3D printed foot sole, and that's the enabler. Because of that, Eliud Kipchoge, that wonderful athlete, it is pushing the envelope of humanity. So you can imagine every day better, faster, stronger. That's the mantra. Uh, uh, Olympics or any sports community, but that is with the teamwork and endurance. So if you follow marathon, run in a formation, so that his team members are also assisting him to break the barrier. So that's the spirit. So we have to come together, uh, form the problem statement, imagine end results, and make it happen. So that's the zeal, and that's the spirit we follow. Okay, and now
Yes.
poll time.
So one more new poll will be just flashing on your screen right now. So please do answer. I'll wait for 30 seconds.
Yes, so the poll is live now. We would like to know your opinion. It's a multiple choice, so you can choose uh, which technology you prefer the most, which excites you the most. So I would like everyone to give their votes. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So
you can continue. The poll is currently running. You can continue.
so now what we wanted to talk to you about is about our learnings. So our learnings come from our experiences. So Objectify has already produced in my first presentation, I had showcased like we have done more than 500 components since our inception. We have good 8 plus production equipment in the polymer operation. We have delivered more than 30,000 projects with an uptime of our machines for 95%. So that uptime is really crucial for our, let's say, ISO certifications also. So we are a ISO 9001 certified companies, and on similar lines, we have our customer satisfaction matrix also. So all in all, Objectify has delivered some beautiful projects. So from those projects itself, we have learned a lot. So we wanted to showcase on the similar line. We also wanted to talk to you about the metal. So currently we are one of the biggest, at least on the metal side, we are the biggest additive manufacturing setup in India and South Asia. So we have a good experience of more than 25,000 hours of printing in metal, and we have executed more than 2,000 plus unique metal projects. So it might consist of several designs in one project itself also. So currently in our metal operations began in 2016. So in 4 years, we have melted more than 8 tons of ALSI 10 mg. So, and we have melted uh, 5 tons of Maragin steel and SS316L, and 3 tons of titanium 6AL4V. So that is the experience on material level. That is our experience on executing projects for our customers. So from there, we have learned a lot, and a lot of failures we have gone through, a lot of misconceptions at our end, which got cleared during the process itself. So these learnings we wanted to impart with you in today's presentation. So I just wanted to give you a background of Objectify's experience itself. So that's why, like, all the statistics I wanted to discuss, so that at least you will be confident enough that we have some backing numbers with us and talk. Yes. So the learning process for us is also similarly to what you do. It is learn, unlearn, then relearn, and then reinforce the technology itself. So learning comes from the experience, then unlearning is a reflexive action, or the observation what we do, and then again we relearn, which is called thinking. So whatever we unlearn, we are thinking about it and then reinforcing those learning in our attempt to complete the process chain itself. So we also follow PDCA kind of a cycle, which is a known planning cycle itself. So what we do is, like, we again and again learn in different projects, because we are not exactly making a product. We are trying to service our customers. So our every customer has a unique problem statement with their unique designs. So with every design itself, we learn a lot, and that learning we wanted to impart with you. So with this similar cycle itself, I want you to today learn, unlearn, and relearn, and reinforce the thought process itself. Right? So we will be talking about the SLS process and the defects around the SLS process itself. So as I told you that we also faced a lot of difficulties in understanding what kind of technology is required for what level of part quality itself. So I just wanted to discuss on the SLS front. So there are, like, 4 kind of defects what you can understand from the technology itself. One is the geometric and the dimension. The second one is the surface quality, which is related to the finishing of the product. The third one is the microstructure, and the fifth one, the most important one for any material, is the mechanical properties. So it's so in the geometric and the dimension defect, the inaccuracy and the dimensional inaccuracy is the basic problem. So we reiterate several times onto the process itself to have the best results as much as possible. The surface quality in SLS, as per se, as example, orientation plays a very big role in the surface finish and the layer thickness. So we take care accordingly. It should also not affect the monetary factors, which is the profitability and producing as many parts as much possible in one single go itself. Then comes the microstructure. So microstructure of the component is very important, as you are melting and solidifying the layers. So microstructure plays a very big role very important role, and the mechanical properties is important for your functionalities. So those are like some of the defects we answer every day with our customer related problems itself. So these are like some of the things where we talk about the warpages. So warpage is also one of the basic criteria. So it depends on the material getting curled in itself, and creating cell buckling kind of a attribute. So here you can see what kind of examples are there for warpages in SLS technology. You can see, so you have to choose the right parameters for right level of requirement of your product itself. So Rahul?
Yeah, so
So
I can add some more on this page. So you can see there are 4 variants of A, B, C, D. So in case of B and C, you can see because of the wall pages how the uh, geometry is deforming, and it is not giving the perfectly orthogonal surfaces. So in case of B, it looks like it's blown out, and in C it is shrunken, and in case of E, it has a totally warped geometry in a transverse plane. So something of that sort affects your assembly as well as overall aesthetics, how the product looks like in terms of finish and feel. So that is something we need to tackle. So these are very common challenges engineers solve. We are always living in a dilemma that we want to achieve faster delivery, but with a better accuracy and a lower cost. So that's one of the dilemma. Yeah.
yes. So in additive manufacturing as a prototyping technology, so these are like few of the things you have to take care while producing a good component. So when you so you can check these kind of results after some testing samples, and you can check the temperature at which you are operating and what is the melting power you're using on your laser. So these are like few things you can take care. Rahul, can you go into the
Yeah,
next?
so over here we are changing this geometric shape, and in order to get the better uh, accuracy in terms of that very lower aspect ratio, thin structure geometry. So we are changing the shape, and with those sort of experiments, we can reduce the warpages. And these sort of design interventions we constantly do. So next topic is Ankit. Uh,
So layer marks
le-
is one another problem of surface finish, where the the component has certain layer marks, and it is one of the surface requirement of the customer itself. So what we generally do is on the orientation and the layer thickness. So there is a thumb rule that anything above 45 degrees is good, will be having a good surface on SLS technology or in SLA technology. But if it goes below 45 degrees in the orientation phase, there will be certain layer marks onto the component. So we have to decide what kind of a compromise we want to make on the feature or the surface finish itself. So these are like some things you need to take care during the process itself. Rahul, can you go next?
yeah.
So because of certain problems in the process itself, there might be a lot of failures. So these are like few of the examples of failed builds at our office. So these are some of the failed builds at Objectify where we have failed several builds. So the reasons might be that one of the layer might have curled into the recoater, or the recoater might have jammed one of the component, or there might be during the design preparation itself, there might be certain pitfalls which the designer might have done and oriented the component not as per the protocol which has to be followed. But due to this, there is a loss of lot of monetarily. So we have to understand in this regards that these are some of the factors we have to take care during the process itself. Rahul, can you go next again? So defects on the hole sizes is also one thing which we should take care, and we do this design for experiment. As you can see on the screen itself, there are certain holes which requires a certain level of resolution requirement is there. So here is one small DOE what we generally do to understand what kind of laser power is required, what kind of for the surface finish requirement, how we should go ahead in making these kind of in answering these kind of problems. So on the font, let's say if you want to type it in your name on the component, so you have to take care of these related problems. So you have to keep on checking what is the thickness and the what is the indentation you're working on. So again, you have to do certain level of DOEs to gain that kind of an experience and tell to your customer that these are the desired inputs related to the design itself, and you have to tackle them during the processing of the build itself. Right? So again, in the SLA, curling of the support is a big challenge. So this is our live project which got failed onto our SLA equipment. So you have to take care of these orientations and good support in the part, so that these kind of defects can be minimized, these kind of failures can be minimized, because it is a direct loss to your time, to your material, and the cost for producing this. So you have to take care on the orientation front during the process. Rahul? So again, the support is a very big challenge on stereolithography. So you have to orient the component as desired, and you have to remove as much support, extra support possible, because it is a sunk cost to your product itself. But doing that, you should not uh, you should not waste your material so much on the component that it fails during the process. So you have to take care of your designs and the orientation accordingly, so that you require lesser support but enough support to actually make the component. Rahul?
Yeah. Next poll.
Yes.
So we are designing these polls to engage you and understand in terms of utilization of technology, where you stand, what sort of information we had shared so far, how our next engagement should be. So those are the things that we want to understand from audience, so that we prepare our programs for better receipt with the audience, as well as there is an action plan to follow, so that uh, it's not something that you consume as an information and forget. That's the failure we would consider. So the learning has to be reinforced when you put it in action. So that's the plan, do, check, act model we mentioned, right? If act is absent, then what's the point of plan, do, and check? So that's why we are very action oriented, and the learnings we shared so far, you can see there had been failures. So failure exists where there are actions. So I will share furthermore on metal side. So Drew, answer your polls.
Yes, so the poll is live right now. I would request everyone to please submit your answers so that we can gauge that what kind of career field you are currently working or see yourself opting in for in the future when it comes to 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So, sir, the poll is running right now. You can continue. I will submit the results in the end.
Yeah, so now I will share some of the material and how we learn. So first of all, you need to follow certain best practices. So some of the examples we shared, that's our experimentation, right? So in absence of knowledge, we can do experimentation, but somebody has always been doing experimentation, and you can capitalize on that. So that's the learn phase, right? So you learn about the technology, where industry stands, what are the standard protocols, which are the material specification, what is the level of accuracy, precision, mechanical strength, and quality that we can achieve, and where is the robust data for that. So this is a kind of a standard that are there for metal additive manufacturing, mostly focused on powder bed fusion, because those are the technologies we possess in our hand. So we are sharing those examples. So AMS is a standard by uh, SAE. So there had been several organizations. Society of Automotive Engineers is one, then NIST, ASTM. There are certain Indian standards are getting written as well. So all these standards help us to gain the insights, have certain empirical data at our disposal, so that when you are printing aluminum, what is the strength you can expect? If you are printing titanium, what is the strength you can expect, and what should be the chemical composition for the material? In case of tool steel, how far you can push for the strength versus the other aspect that comes along with the tool steel in order to heat dissipation. So what is the thermal conductivity of the material? All these level of details we have to learn first, and then over here I am showing how metallurgical quality control we manage it. So right from incoming raw supply, how we check its quality, how we plan for process robustness, print certain test coupons, do design for experiments, and uh, develop those test coupons and get it tested for mechanical strength and other properties. So this is our quality program, you can say, in a sense, in order to qualify the process as well as the material being used, and what is the end resulting quality of that. So if we are complying with the what we have learned, then we are ready to host any sort of components to be printed on those machines. So there are some uh, details that I would like to share about how we do the quality control. Only focused on printing process uh, is foolish, I think, because what you are going to print, you need to be smart that about that as well. So in order to handling the complexity, it's not the process that you usually follow in case of injection molding or blow molding or casting, die casting, where you just qualify the tool and process just once, and it is repetitively printing or manufacturing the similar sort of component. But over here in our facility, as Ankit was sharing again and again, the planning, management, and risk assessment comes uh, at a cost. If you don't do that, you are definitely going to fail. So we spent quite a lot of amount of our human resource, intellectual power, management resources in order to build a infrastructure where it is fail proof, but still you will see there are new learnings. So that is something that we wanted to share with you, so that our customers have awareness about where we are, how we are improving, and where they can feed us back in terms of their experiences. So because we are touching an elephant, and if someone touches the trunks versus the legs, they can perceive it differently. So if we communicate with each other, then we get a full picture. Yeah, the elephant is an animal which looks like this, you know. So instead of going blindly, we follow this type of practices. You can see in organizations, people can get into their own blind spots. They can go into their own cubicle and just keep on passing papers over the wall. So we want concurrency. So the infrastructure that we build in order to achieve quality, we have access to data in real time. So any sort of intervention or changes that is happening in real time, we can accommodate that in our processes. So right from design, strategy, strategy in a sense of program planning for 3D printers, which machine is assigned to run that program, how qualified that machine is, and then quality control team is very much ingrained in all these decision making and action plans. And ultimately we have to do the quality checks as well. So those 500,000 in plastic and more than 50,000 components in metal, something of that sort, if we are handling in terms of shape, size, variety, complexity, then and also keeping the customer satisfaction, we have to do quality checks very thoroughly. So we have a CMM and a very qualified engineers who can do the quality checks and deliver the best quality outcome. So that's the reason why I stop over here in order to share our overall quality program. So first beginning with the process management, but that's not the end of it. We have to out of process how we can control the quality and get best outcome. So that is something. So in terms of machine maintenance as well, which becomes very crucial. So we continuously keep on doing this type of qualification at certain frequency, in a sense calibrating the machine performance. So we build this type of test builds as a design of experiment and do the calibration, uh, find out the beam offset and do the correction. Mechanical test type of building, as I explained earlier. So these are some of the images. So this is our continuous exercise that we had been doing for different materials. Then unique capability that I described in a second webinar, where planning and risk assessment and virtual failures we can simulate. It's very cheap to fail virtually, right? Because you're not engaging heavier resources and wasting crucial material, which is expensive as well, manpower. So over here, I am showing one example that how the models are stipulating certain physics-based behavior, but whether it is drifting from reality or it is depicting the reality, that is something you have to calibrate. And Ankit, in case of first webinar, he was sharing example of ISRO, ISRO organization, how they are level-headed in terms of expectations and very uh, uh, thorough in terms of defining the quality parameters and all. So in terms of that, uh, robust input gives the robust quality and output. So garbage in, garbage out is something CA engineers every day use, I think. So this is something we are showing an example. So we print certain objects which uh, we process in order to find out how much is the residual stress, and because of that bending that is coming in or warpage that is coming in into objects, and we measure that using CMM and transfer it into that data gets transferred into models. We feed those models. Once those models are learned enough, they are learned enough, then they can predict much better, and we can believe those results uh, almost blindly. So although we do take care of all that sort of stuff, but still there are surprises. So over here I'm sharing one example. In case of a thin structure or thin to thick transitions, during that phases there can be scenarios. Even though we predicted certain simulation, the zone where there can be likely chances of failure is identified. We took preemptive measures or proactive control measures. Still there are failures. So sometimes we get off guard as well. So we learn from that. So over here you can see in printing thin shell-like structure, almost like a sheet metal component. There was a failure because of the coater had jammed, and because of the thermal deviation in the geometry. Similarly, we experiment. So we wanted to print around 3 sectors in order to make a complete uh, stator of a compressor. So that is made in titanium. So we wanted to understand what is the best strategy to print the entire sector of 120 degree, because of the build envelope we can only print 120 degree, and then it has to be welded and joined to make complete 360-degree structure. But prior to that, if we fail on that sort of a 5 kg component, which is 120 degree in arc, that will be a very severe failure. So we wanted to fail early, fail small, fail cheap. So over here you can see only 10-degree sector we strategized different support structure strategy, and one of it had failed, another one has succeeded. So that's the way we proactively plan how far we can push the technology, which are the variations we can put in practice and learn from it. So another example, again, sheet metal type of component. When the coater jams and it hits, if the geometry is too thin, then it can have a certain deviation, and the subsequent offset will be there because of the layer will not be depositing and at the correct location. So that is one of the kind of failure we learned. So if we are printing very thin sheet kind of a geometry, this is something we have to watch out for, and we have to have certain reinforcement plan. uh, Again, limitation in terms of higher aspect ratio. So if you're printing very thin cylindrical type of feature which is very columnar and tall, then there can be chances of bending and offset and this type of failure. So you see that smaller cylindrical objects were printed very robustly, but the taller there are issues. So how we mitigated this problem is very unique. So we were able to still print it. It is open for your imagination. I would like to challenge you, and I will answer that maybe sometime later or in next session. So we were still able to print these objects all vertically erect without failure and with the true geometry without bend. So that is something we gain mastery by learning, by observing, by failing and relearning, reinforcing. So another example over here is delamination. So if thick to thin transitions are happening and subsequent layer is not held strongly for the base layer, then there can be delamination kind of failures. So over here, 3 components were printed successfully. One of it got that sort of failure. So you can see uh, these type of failures are common. Even though are having pre-planned, we need to uh, do simulations, we need to uh, do qualifications, but still there are certain surprises. So we learn uh, every day and accommodate, and the way that we do, I will show it to you. So I will first go through all the types of defects and failures that likely arise. So this is a crack initiation, you can see. So since bigger, chunkier geometry, once they receive laser exposure, they have a higher tendency because of the thermal conductivity, the heat capacity inside that big, thick cross-section geometry. It can retain heat longer, and the thinner structure can get cooler faster. So you know that phenomena. The surface area is essential. That's why the fins are added in terms of cylinder heads of engine, or fins are added on top of our gadgets like PC chips, the semiconductor microprocessor type of chips. They also get heat sinks, right? So those are with increased surface area. So in case of support structure, that is very mesh-like geometry. It has a more surface area. It dissipates heat much faster. But the thicker, bulkier sections, it doesn't leave the heat very rapidly, and then that differential in terms of temperature causes delamination and crack initiation. So that is very common in metal 3D printing, and how to define a robust heat dissipation strategy with the support structure becomes a key challenge as well. So all this type of learning, as I described, how we record it. So we need to have certain failure records, otherwise it get missed and it's a lost opportunity for learning. We can blindly replan, and it will be just a fluke that one day it printed successfully, another day it is not. It is a matter of chance, and it is almost like gambling, right? So with that sort of approach, the failure rate can be tremendous, and you will go bankrupt very soon. So we don't play, of course, gambling. We are engineers. We need to make wise choices and weigh in the options very wisely and solve the dilemmas. So over here, you can see the issues are recorded, the failure modes are recorded, then what can be the cause for that failure mode is recorded, and how we can do the corrective action and correction is proposed. And these type of approaches, it brings in interventions at the early design phases or process planning phases, where we can implement certain corrective actions or preventive actions. So learning can be in-house and outside as well. So we are constantly looking at how certain things are getting manufactured and what we can learn from it. So the two images on the left side, you see attempt by one of the fabricator, and they were facing the recorder jamming issues and offset issue. Even though recorder jamming collapsed in the first attempt, they went ahead with the same plan, and it again jammed. But after the jam, there was subsequent layer deposition offset it. So that was the second attempt, again failed. So we re-strategized uniquely. We employed our uh, uh, computer power and failed virtually, and we were successful in the first attempt. So that's the beauty of learning from failure and how you can gain advantage using the power of digital skills and thorough understanding of process. So and now we have to put the plan and learning in action. So we keep on experimenting. So in previous approaches, you might have seen in the left hand side the voluminous support. So the waist is quite high, but on the right side, as we evolve, we are making it optimal. We are reducing the support structure material and still printing the complex object without internal support in the main part body, uh, self-supporting type of approach. So that is something is competitive advantage nobody else can offer. So that's the beauty of learning from failure.
Sir, we are running
So,
short in time. So
yeah, so next is poll time again. I think we are at the end. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be running the poll right now, the final poll of this series. Kindly give your answers. So these are the current challenges you see in the adaptation of additive manufacturing. So basically in your industry or in the company you're currently working in, or whatever you are seeing in the industry right now. So please cast your votes. You can see it flashing on the screen right now.
Okay, so I will go ahead. Meanwhile,
Yes,
sharing
sir. You can go
our
ahead.
layout and plan. So planning is not just the process. It's not just the buying of certain softwares. How organized efforts can be put in place is very important. So layout planning, how the process chain looks like, fail-safe criterias, uh, all that comes into picture. So we do the layout planning like this. So you can see where our areas are, where value-added work is going on. Supportive areas as well. So people need to be safe, secured, certain safe practices, as well as the power outages are common as well. So UPS and utilities, yeah, all that sort of. And uh, once these kind of infrastructure and support is in place, then people are motivated to deliver better quality products, as well as they will intervene and be motivated to resolve certain issues and problems. So that's the end of our presentation. We will go ahead for discussion. So meanwhile, I will show our plant layout in much more detail manner. So how our plant layout looks like, and I think most of you will be curious that we want to see the plant facility, but we are locked down at home. So we came up with the idea that why don't we give you a virtual plant tour. So Ankit, you can keep engaged. I will open up
Yes.
meanwhile.
No, you can just show them around.
Yeah.
And I'll be answering their questions also. So you
Okay.
open.
So can you see my screen? Hello, Ankit. Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah. So as I shared with the image over here, I'm operating using 3D model and showing you the area. So we have a production area for 3D printing in this yellow zone, and the raw powder is over here. Then all the design planning is in this green area, and production planning, process planning is in this yellow area. Post processing happens in this open floor, shop floor, where we have CNC machines, and loading unloading bay is over here. So that's how our layout looks like. So let's walk through the layout. So I will show you a walkthrough. Okay, so we are at the entrance, and Just a moment. I will go at the entrance. Yeah, so we are at the entrance. So first, as soon as you enter in our facility, you'll see the quality room. So in a quality room, we have records that I was mentioning, the learning and experiences, as well as outgoing part that to be dispatched. We do the inspections over here using CMM machine. So we have a couple of engineers workstations and a CMM machine, and our material library and uh, overall quality framework, all the records we manage in this room. So, so I'm showing the process chain in a reverse fashion. So before coming to the quality inspection, the post processing has happened on the component. So the post processing happens on the shop floor where last finishing touches like CNC milling and surface grinding, or if certain parts need to be detached using the power saw, all that happens over here. So let's walk towards the CNC machining capability. So we have two CNC machines in our metal facility in Noida. So this plant is the only Noida metal facility, which is the recent one. So we moved into this facility last year in March, and it's almost a year now that we are operating in this facility. So we have two CNC machine in Noida, one CNC machine in polymer operation. So the polymer is not that advanced machine, but in case of metal, we need to handle certain complexity. And uh, uh, over here, you can see the best and latest one is 5-axis machine with these rotary tables by Mazak. And we have another 3-axis CNC milling center. So both these machines do the post processing. So let's walk over to the uh, 3D printing production room. So I'm walking towards the 3D printing production room. So in the 3D printing production room, we have two machines on this right, which are by EOS. So DMLS technology we had been speaking about, that's the powder bed fusion. So these two machines are M290. M290 machines are uh, having a bed size of 250 by 250, and the depth that you can go is up to 300. uh, so that's the capability of these two machines. Then we have one machine each of M280. M280 is a precursor of M290, so it has a similar sort of capability and some degree of flexibility as well. So it has a build envelope of 250 by 250. So I'm showing you the M400 machine. This is the latest and best that industry can offer at the moment. So this machine is having 4 lasers that are exposing simultaneously an area of 400 by 400 mm, and the depth it can print up to 400 mm. So you can see the build envelope, any object that you can accommodate into a box size of 400 by 400 by 400 can be printed on this machine, and it is printing 4 lasers simultaneous. So it is one of the fastest machine that you can uh, uh, imagine. So that's the our metal 3D printing setup. So this is a M280 as I mentioned. So let's walk out of this room, and I will show you our software capability areas where our engineers, our real brain power sits. And uh, have a overall 5 to 6 workstation in this room. So that's where the production planning happens. So we have planning softwares like Materialize, NetFab, that's for STL file editing and process planning and support structure, geometry decision. And then we have a process planning softwares as well as a simulation software like SimiFact and all that is in this room. Let's move on to the last room. That's our brain power in design. So that's how we are going into value chain up and up. So just physical aspect of printing, where it happens and all, but majority of time and innovation and discussions are happening in these two rooms. So where our engineers are sitting and thinking about solving your problem. So over here you can see we have a overall 6 workstations again in application team. We have engineers with experience in molding, manufacturing from auto sector, medical, sheet metal working, manufacturing using injection molding, die casting. So all that sort of engineering expertise and how to consult our customers on design front. That's where uh, power of exploiting power of additive manufacturing comes into play. So our engineers have just first-hand exposure. They can just peek over here and take a look at our machines, what is going on, right? So they have a first-hand exposure, and they can advise you on the designs very robustly, and they compute the cost, lead time, and do the due diligence of recommending you. So sometimes certain customer comes for a very simple geometry. If a conventional technique is much better option, we say no as well. So there is not always uh, 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 we are not always in a salesman kind of mode. So we advise correctly, wisely, so that our customer relationship is very key, and satisfaction for the customer is very important. So that's how our overall value equation is. Our layout is our flow of object. So I
So the poll
shared with
results
you.
are ready. Would you like for me to
Yeah.
display them?
Yes,
Yes.
I will wrap up. So that's how our plant layout looks like, and our management teams, we constantly keep on looking how we can better ourselves, and keep on adding value to the end customer, as well as uh, honing our organization for better, sharper, faster, just like with the Olympic spirit. So better, faster, stronger, with teamwork and with endurance. So it doesn't happen in one day. So over a year, and in order to show this walkthrough for you as well, I spent some amount of time to design this virtual layout as well. So you can see we put very passionately the efforts behind. So now you can share, Sankha, the poll result.
So,
Yes, you can see
Rahul,
the poll results, sir.
Yes, I
yes.
can.
Yes,
Yeah.
so everyone can see. You can give your verdicts.
So with the first poll, we wanted to understand what is your proficiency with the technology itself. So here, the major amount of audience has been at the beginner stage. So some experience with the designing and the manufacturing, that is really good, because then becomes like the building blocks for your journey through additive. And most of you guys have been in the beginner to advanced to the expert level. So that is a great understanding that people have certain experience with the technology side itself. So, and we see through our second poll that there's a lot of excitement on the metal side, which is a very good thing for a company like Objectify. But on personal level, I just wanted to check with our audience that the whole world globally, everything is moving to from metal to polymer, but in additive people are getting more and more interested in metal than polymer. So it is a different kind of a shift what we are also seeing with our customers. They are talking more on the metal requirements than on the polymer, but polymer also is offering a high level of solutions for the customer for the small batch, changing from injection molding to a different technology of additive, playing around with the design also. So polymer is also as important as metal, but I can totally understand right now this is the trend what we are also seeing in the technology frame itself, that people are moving more towards the metal technology. Then with the third poll, most of you guys have been interested in the designing and the modeling side, which is a very good thing. But as I had told you in my first presentation itself, that the biggest motivator in additive manufacturing is finding new business opportunities. So new business opportunities will be coming if you know about something about design, if you know about how they are manufactured, if you know more about the material, so finding out new businesses is the answer for your design challenges and design related activity. As you can see, during this COVID-19, a lot of people from the additive community, they've come up with new designs. But until unless you have a new business case around certain problem statement, coming up with new designing modeling doesn't make any sense. So you have to have certain understanding of doing new business development and implementing those strategies for your benefit and collective benefit. So with the fourth one is quite tight between people coming with lack of awareness as one of the major challenge everybody is facing, which is a good thing that companies like Objectify are conducting these kind of sessions, and we want to impart our knowledge as much as possible with our audience and our users, so that they get fully equipped with the technology. But it is a good thing that there are people who have just got introduction through the technology, and they are trying to use it for their requirement, but not able to uh, fully use the technology itself. So it is a good graph. So most of our audience has been as we had expected. So it is a good. Why we wanted to do such a poll? We wanted to learn more about you and what kind of a content we should be able to prepare for you in our next sessions, and whenever we'll be doing certain academia related problem statement, we will be able to tackle these problems better. So it is, these four polls were for our understanding, and we wanted to showcase like at what level everybody who has been attending such webinars are. So it is a very good uh, understanding what we are getting from an audience like you guys. So I wanted to take some questions from few of the users. Um, so one gentleman asked regarding what is the quality of the surface finish, and and how we are able to cater lots of bends and minor holes in the component itself. So what we generally do is like we uh, try to work on the surface finish and try to have. So again, cost, quality, time is the most important thing when we are orienting any of the component. So the quality shouldn't be compromised as per se in producing the component itself. So the time to make the component is also very important. So if needed, it can be taken in a different in a different secondary process. So it is a good question that we should be able to answer. One gentleman also asked about the softwares for designing for additive manufacturing. Right now, currently, most of the major PLM software uh, companies have come out with their solution for additive manufacturing, but the biggest challenge is in the conversion of the data. So most of the printers are much more comfortable in taking the files in the STL format, but converting from one environment to another environment, you lose a lot of data. So that is one of the challenge. So you should be able to utilize the software which is streamlined to your printer. So that is the very idealistic statement, but that is the only way to go forward with the implementation itself. uh, So somebody is asking for blown powder technique, can we have support structures? For blown powder, mostly what people are doing currently is a 2D extrusion related designs. So very simple 2.5D designs what people are doing. For any kind of overhangs, they are providing certain additional support, which is not through 3D printing, but through let's say fixturing and other methods. So I think so you have to have a different kind of an approach and strategy to work with blown powder techniques. Uh, so somebody also asked uh, what kind of testings we do when we get new metal compositions. So whenever we get new metal compositions, generally when we buy it from our vendors, we ask three questions from them. One is the chemical composition, the other one is the size of the powder size, and the third is the circularity or the SEM image. So this is how we judge before buying any powders. And for the process development, there is a very systematic way of developing processes for printing of metal parts. So generally we take a thumb rule of seeing what is the weldability of the material, of the raw material. So if so generally if the raw material is good weldable, has good weldable properties, it will be good enough for additive manufacturing also. These are like some of the thumb rules what we follow during the process itself. So again, I'll take one more. Rahul, do you want to take any?
Yes, so one question I saw is about 4D printing and how it differs from 3D printing. So 4D printing is a new term coined, just leveraging the properties of material. So as I explained in the flow of our presentations, because of the thermal properties, the material is deforming that you saw, right? And that we considered as a defect and a failure. But there are certain scientists, they are leveraging that as an advantage. So how they are doing it, stably printing certain material using 3D printing. So any sort of structure can be printed uniquely. That's the power of 3D printing, right? Then using the properties of deformation in the geometry because of the thermal behavior or electric behavior or shape memory kind of behavior, they are utilizing that to open up the fourth dimensions. So that is because of the material property, geometry further deforms and takes another shape. So that morphology of a shape that can be managed through material behavior, that's the fourth dimension they are adding. So there had been certain examples by Stratasys that they have demonstrated. They can print a structure and then it will deform to solve certain technical problem uniquely, utilizing the property of material to open up a new dimension. So that's something evolving, but there are a few limited use cases I saw so far. Yeah.
And for some people who want to know about 4D printing, you could refer Mr. Skylar Tibbets from MIT. He studies these structures, etc., that are 3D printed, and they self-deform due to maybe some water solvents, etc., and they make a particular...
Stimulus.
Yes, Skylar Tibbets.
Yes.
So you can.
So somebody is asking, Mr. Naveen is asking, why are you using CNC machine in your production line? So as we had been showing that certain level of finish or a certain level of dimensional tolerances are required for our customers end. And as we have already told in our previous sessions, that you should compare any metal additive component similar to your investment casted component. So later on you have to do secondary processes. So for those secondary processes, you utilize our CNC equipments. So we have a 5-axis continuous from Mazak, and we also have a 3+1 BFW. So we utilize it for final finishing it for our customers. Can you run through the cost versus quantity graph? Rahul, can you go back?
Yeah, I'm going back. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm going back to that.
Ms. Sonali is asking, do you have to make separate machines for each different application? No, generally the machines are for varied applications, but still people are trying to modify the machines for certain applications, such as there is a company in New York called Launcher. So they get their machine manufactured from US for their height requirements, because they make the complete body of a rocket launcher. So they require something around 1.5 meters. So for different application, yes, the machine manufacturer works differently and provide certain add-ons itself. Yes. So in this graph, what we wanted to show, in the conventional manufacturing way, if your quantities are increasing, the cost for making one single component will be decreasing. But in an additive manufacturing environment, the cost for manufacturing one unit will be same if you're going for 1 or 100. So that is the unique point. That is a unique break point where your volumes for conventional matches with additive, and you are able to sustain additive small batch production if compared to the conventionally produced small batch production. So that's why, like, the beauty of the technology comes in, and you can utilize it for your production lines itself.
Yeah,
Rahul?
I can take one question. So what are the basic lasers and intensities used for DMLS materials? That's the question asked. So any sort of laser is a collimated beam of infrared spectrum. So that's the heat energy, right? So how that gets generated, there can be many possibilities. So different manufacturers are using different laser sources. So the best ones are the stable ones in terms of consistency and delivering same power over prolonged duration is fiber lasers. So CO2 lasers are the things of past. They are still used in some machines, but CO2 lasers have a tendency, because of the heat variation, they cannot emit the consistent power exposure. So ytterbium laser is the laser that we use in our facility. Those are fiber lasers, and it can be varying in terms of the wattage as well. So there are options. So we chose for productivity 4 laser zones having 400 watt capacity. That's our biggest machine, right? And other machines as well are having 400 watt capacity. But watt capacity lasers are available for the bigger machines in terms of 1 kilowatt as well. So it's up to you in terms of choice, how collimated beam you can achieve, what is the area that at one or a melting pool at a one single exposure it can cover, and because of that the quality and resolution, all that you can manage. So it differs. So there can be choices of, you can go up to 5 kilowatt if you are melting at a very high speed, and so the system design is up to the machine makers, and there are many options. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So can
You
we
want to take
conclude
another?
the webinar now? I guess a lot of questions have been answered, and we can
Yes,
respond them back later.
Yeah, so today we answered around again 90 odd questions. The number of people joined is more than 200, close to 200. Thank all. And Sankha, you can pitch in for the last session that we are going to have, where we will be even much more taking it further to listen to your demands, your challenges. So that will be again an interactive session like today. So last session. Sankha, pitch in.
Yeah, so I would like to thank everyone for joining in. That was very informative. I would like to thank Mr. Rahul Pise, Mr. Ankit Sahu, Mr. Ashish Jacob, and Mr. Nishant Kashyap for being here and helping you guys out. It was really nice to see the interaction that you guys have had. A lot of questions came in, so I would like to please let you know that the questions that you have that have not been answered will be sent to you via a bundle, and along with the presentations itself. So you don't have to worry about missing the previous presentations. You can obviously join for our last session of this series, which is the current challenges and demands of the industry. So we would be really grateful if you can come up with those questions which were unanswered and you would like them to be answered in the next session as well. Finally, I would like to thank Tagma Times, Tagma for being our associate partner, as well as I would like to thank Mr. Sachin from Daily CAD-CAM, who has been our media partner, has been relentlessly supporting us. So thank you, everyone. We are expecting to see you in the next session, which will be on the 14th, which is the final session of this series. So we are currently working on bringing up new sessions for you. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, participants, for attending this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So we'll
Always a
end the session
pleasure.
right now.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Yes.
day. And please stay safe, stay indoors,
safe.
and stay informed.
So we just felt a small earthquake.
Yes,
While
yes. So
Yes,
it
yes.
doesn't look nice. So yeah, so I would request everyone to please stay safe.
Yes.
Really hope that you guys are taking the necessary precautions, following the Ministry of Health and the WHO. So yeah, so take care, everyone. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.